Hello and welcome to the Feminine Rising podcast. My name is Amber Moreno. For those that are new here, welcome. If you're watching over on YouTube, welcome. It's good to see your faces. I'm sure it's good to see mine again. And if you're listening over on another application, I think Spotify now plays videos as well. It's good to see your faces. And if you're listening, it's so good to be here with you, whatever you might be doing, whether you're cleaning, driving, at work, because we all know work is boring as fuck, right? Whatever that might be. So glad to have you here. It's been a hot minute since we have been together over on the podcast. There's going to be quite a few changes over on here as well. If you notice, my background is completely different. I'm playing around more with the AI technologies we have because they're here to help us. And I, quite frankly, love AI and I still want my own Rosie the robot to help me clean my house. I don't know about you, but that's a dream I've had since I've seen the Jetsons as a young girl. So I'm utilizing what I can. Also, my house is destroyed. My cats are always destroying it. And so here we are. My office is in the living room. Well, it's not really my office. My cool office is downstairs, but my husband is currently in his own meeting at the time of this recording. So we have to share the space we have. So I'm upstairs, he's downstairs. You didn't need to know all of that, but I'm here to share it all with you. So welcome. So let's go ahead and chat because the last time I did a podcast was actually back on the 31st of October in 2024. It is now March 5th at the time of this recording, 2025. So it's been, oh, wow, like 6 months. So it's been quite a bit of time. A lot has happened. A lot of things haven't happened. It just kind of depends, I guess, on what you think is interesting and exciting. So if you've been following me over on I am Amber Moreno on Instagram or even TikTok, I'm also on Threads now, which I'm not sure if I like Threads or not. I'm still figuring it out. But you've noticed even my website has a bunch of updating. We're going darker with everything. And I have always been a goth girly at heart. I really, really love black. It's one of my favorite color. I know it's not a color, so don't come at me, you little artists out there. I know. Okay. I took color theory 101 in college too. But with that to say, I feel more in my skin for once. I don't feel like I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not. And we'll talk a little about this right now. Why not? Since some of you might be new and you might not know me, but I've been going through my healing journey since I was 28, 29 years old, I'd say around there. And it started innocently with just going to talk therapy because I didn't want to place a lot of my parents' bad habits onto my children. Because at the time, I wasn't sure when I was going to have children. I currently still don't have children. I'm going to be 36 on May 2nd of this year. And so, a lot of healing time has happened in between there, almost 10 years now, between, medicine journeys, reconstruction of my current beliefs of Christianity and Catholicism and all of these things, and really learning more about the dark side and shadow work of the whole healing process. I'm kind of still finding my own, but I'm finally, like I said, I feel like I'm in my own skin. I feel good. And I've always really, like I said, loved the darkness. I've learned to embrace it. I've always been obsessed with ghosts as a child, aliens, the whole bit. We won't be talking about none of that today. We'll save that for another podcast, but let's just do a little life update. So, for those of you that are new and maybe you don't follow me over on Instagram at I am Amber Moreno, go ahead and give me a follow over there. Like I said, my messaging has definitely changed. I have been speaking a lot more about the deconstruction and reconstruction of the beliefs that I believe what Jesus originally wanted us to learn. And the biggest one being to love each other and to know that you have God within you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are God. Okay. I don't, we as humans, we have to have a higher belief. So you cannot be God because that ends up for a lot of destruction. Yes, we have God within us, which is why we're able to create our own matrices within this matrix that we exist as in our human experience. But with that knowing, right, there's so much more depth to that than just that surface level statement of God is within me or I am God, whatever. Okay. Because you are the great I am. Because I am, it lives in your heart space. For those that can't see me, what I'm doing. Um, but with all of that, okay, I know how much trauma can be caused in religion. I also know equally how much help religion can be for those that need it. Okay. So I'm not coming at an angle of this belief of all religion is shit, because that's not true. Okay. It's the way it is produced, structured, and used to control today is where I have the issue. And it stems back all the way back. We're talking back in Roman times. And I had to do a lot of digging for myself because I needed to learn my lineage, where I came from. Because one of the things, if you don't know, I live in Sedona, Arizona, very small mountain town. But this land used to be shared between multiple tribes. The biggest tribe out here is Navajo, and then the Hopi Nation is within the Navajo Nation. So I have been learning a lot of how they do their rituals, how they do, their ceremonies, especially when it comes to protection from negative forces or demons, as we call them in, the Catholicism or Christian religions. And with that, though, it's not mine because I am not indigenous at all. So I had to go and dig into my lineage and really find out who I am. Because if you see me and you don't know, I can look Italian, I can look European of some kind. Some people say I am white, which is not true. I am not white by any means, but I have a very pale complexion and it can be a little confusing. Now, if you are Hispanic, 9 times out of 10, I am Hispanic as well. But for those that don't know, I'm 44% Chihuahuan Mexican. And then the rest of me is kind of in a collective mix between Basque Spanish and French. There's a little bit of Irish in there, which I'm like, damn, my dad gets to take that. It's like 1%. He'd always tell us that we're Irish as kids. I used to think he was making it up. Apparently he wasn't. So it's not very much there. But like my younger brother, he has Irish genes. He used to have redder hair when he was younger and his eyes are green. No one else in our family looks like that. I think he said my dad said his grandfather had green eyes or something, but that's how diluted it is. But anyway, so knowing that I had this DNA lineage of Chihuahuan Mexican and Basque Spanish and French, I needed to dig more into it. And so I obviously clearly look more Basque Spanish. So if you were to look up the people that live there in Basque, which is actually its own country, it's right in between Spain and France off of the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. I don't really know that side of geography very well, but in there, it's its own country. And so the history of it, and this is where it gets really interesting and kind of it'll lead into why I feel good where I am in my messaging and with helping people with religious trauma is because back in Roman times, like I was stating earlier, Constantine wanted paganism to stop. And I can't remember the exact reason off the top of my head right now, but essentially he wanted to gain control. And part of that to control people is controlling their beliefs. Because if you control someone's beliefs, you can basically make them do whatever you want. So that was the purpose behind it. So I'm not 100% sure how he came to Christ and all of these things. I can't remember, like I said, but he did. And with that, he used the Bible, changed the Bible. I don't know if it was Constantine that changed it, it might have been Augustus that changed it, but somebody changed the Bible back then. And when they did that, this is where the control started to happen. So he wanted paganism to stop Constantine. And so by doing that, he created the marriage of church and state. And so if you weren't a Christian or a Catholic, or I think it was Roman Catholic back then, right? That's where the term comes from. You would basically be persecuted, whether that was by crucifixion, hanging, whatever. The witch hunts then started later on because, again, going back down to this control. And so that's kind of how it stemmed. And then it kind of traveled over into America. And if you are American, you know the history, or a witch, you know the history about the witch hunts out here back in the 16, or no, it wasn't even 16, it was the 1800s for America. But they started as early as the 1600s back in other countries. Probably even before that, like I said, because this was all for gaining of control. And so, me being Basque Spanish and Mexican, I am both the colonizer and the colonized. Okay. Now, I don't say that with pride, but I say that knowing who I am and with reverence to it, because it's a big responsibility to hold. And so, with that, it's how can I show up differently and start breaking these old habits and chains, not just for myself, but for others that also feel this dogma of this religion that wants to control them and this persecution that happens to this day. And so that is a big reason why my messaging has changed. Because, like I said, I understand the traumas that come in religion, but not all religion is bad. Okay. There are people out there, there are certain churches out there that are doing it correct. I've been to them, they're amazing. However, I still believe that they are somewhat misguided because they're still not showing or learning and seeing the whole truth. And that is because the indoctrination is so deep that even the pastors that mean well don't fully have that knowledge either. They weren't exposed to it, it was hidden from them. The control is still very much there. And so it's just a big passion that has been coming up, and it's really not difficult for me to navigate, but it's challenging at times to navigate because, again, I don't want to show the impression that evil doesn't exist. I don't want to show the impression that God and Jesus are not the way. And I don't want to show the impression that just because you love your religion, that makes you a persecutor, right? Because you're not. Okay. If you want to believe and be a Christian, then that's fine. But I still stand by calling yourself these things, a Christian, a Catholic, or whatever, that you are agreeing to the patriarchal system that still exists. That is breaking, I might add, but it's going to be a long, slow burn. Okay. We will see it break down. It will happen if we live long enough, because I don't know when I'm going to die and I don't know when you're going to pass either and transition into the next realms. However, this is the start of it. And so I believe this is why this was all given onto my heart. This is why I had to learn as deeply as I did in the Christian way, and even growing up in the traditional Catholic way, which is only going to church on the holidays, not really practicing and doing that whole thing. And just hearing, my elder stories from their experiences of being in Catholic schools and private schools. And what's really interesting is my husband was actually, he went to a Catholic school when he was a boy, like my father. So it's just kind of like it's still, the indoctrination is still very much here, but I also believe it was here for me specifically so that I can help others find their way out. Because the only way out of this is through, unfortunately, but fortunately at the same time. So that's really why everything has kind of changed over on my Instagram, why my messaging is really changing, because I didn't feel connected deeply with what I was learning. Not that it was wrong throughout my healing journey, but because it wasn't me, right? I'm never going to be an indigenous human in this lifetime. Like that was not my roots, even though I know quite a bit about it. I'm never going to be Egyptian. Okay. Even though there are Bible stories that stem out of there and Jesus very much walked in those areas, I'm not that. I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not, which is what a lot of these spiritual gurus and mentors and guides, whatever the fuck they want to call themselves, do these days. And it's like, well, why are you culturally appropriating something? Yeah, it's amazing that you learned the ways of India and maybe you believe in that religion, but that's not you. You need to come back to this vessel. Why did you decide to be who you are? So that's why I had to dig deep and ask myself, why did I decide to come and be half, basically half Mexican and half Basque Spanish? Like there's a reason for that. And so as I dug and I digged, and I did, I even got my parents on ancestry.com. Don't come at me. I don't care. The government already has my DNA and fingerprints. Okay. They know I'm existing. Okay. What they do with that, I don't know. But I had to learn that I was Basque Spanish because as I dug into that, it showed me why I was so deeply connected to the sun and nature. Because before the Roman Empire came and took over that part of the world, they were very much pagan, for lack of a better term. They didn't call themselves that, but that's essentially a form of their form of religion. And so they worshiped the sun, which most cultures did. And they were very earthbound people. They were witches in the traditional sense of when I think of a witch, I think of like a green witch, like that apothecary type of witch where she's using her herbs, she's foraging out, using nature, going the natural route of healing versus now, right? It's very modernized and pharmaceutical and all of these things. But I had to learn that because I was deeply connected with that before I even learned any of this. So in my 20s is when I kind of started to come back to a lot of these traditions that I didn't know. And it started with essential oils. I was really deep into that world for a long time. And I'm thankful for it because I learned the holistic path that way. And then it started to grow and grow and grow as I kept learning more and more about, you know, the holistic side of how to take care of yourself. And I still do to this day. Like, I believe that we don't need all of these medications, all of these things. All it takes is coming back to your diet, adjusting how your body needs, because all of our bodies are different, and letting go of a lot of these chemicals and things and going back to the original way of life, and which was herbalism, essentially. And I think when we mix a lot of things together with chemicals and things, this is where things can get a little hairy and people get really sick. But, anyways, so I bring that up because again, it comes back to I really had to learn myself. Why did I decide to be birthed into the family that I decided to be birthed into? And how can I continue on that path, even if I don't know the whole reason my soul contract existed with my family, but how can I use it to my benefit so that I can too help others maybe do something similar? And so this is why I love talking about religious trauma, as hard of a topic as it is, because it goes so, so deep, and depending on, you know, what gender you are will also depend on your experience, or how you grew up and what church you went to will depend on your experience as well. You know, it's all out there, but it's all out there for you to discover and to find out. And that's part of the human experience that I believe that all the spirituality is missing. It's we're never willing to go deep enough to understand and learn who we are, why we became, versus let's just do all the healing, do all of the experiences, all of the psychedelics, and basically disassociate through our healing journey. But once you get to a point where you've pretty much uncovered most of the trauma that you felt you were here to uncover, which is what I did, because essentially this whole journey started with me going to talk therapy because I didn't want to be like my parents and put that onto my kids. And I was in church when I started this. Like, church suggested this to me, a Christian church out here in Arizona, very popular one in Maricopa County. If you know, you know. But it was very innocent. Like, that's all I wanted to do. But it started to unravel, 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 and unravel. And I went through a lot. And I hated the church at one point. At one point, I was like convinced that I knew that Jesus was just a man. And that's not true. Like, yes, he did exist on this earthly plane. And unfortunately, he did actually get crucified and go through these things. It's not just a story to connect the two minds and the cross and the whole thing at the left and the right brain. It's literally he got crucified, and this is how they persecuted Christians back then because they didn't like what he was talking about, because it comes back to loving yourself, loving your neighbor, knowing the innate wisdom within, that God is within you. God is not this external source that we have to pray to, creating these little objects that we have around our home and pray to. Like, even like Jesus statues, like he would probably roll over in his grave. You know what I mean? Like, but you get the drift. Like, he wanted us to know our power. And he was spreading this. And he learned this through Mary Magdalene, who wasn't a scene. And I got some books for you to read if you're interested in that. Reach out to me over on Instagram if you're interested. But this was such a deep knowledge. And again, the Roman Empire needed control, and they didn't know how to do that because they had their own belief system. Like, if you go back in time, right, they believed in their own gods and deities, but that even ended. And they really honed in on this Catholicism thing. And so, yeah, it's a whole thing. My train of thought just left my mind, which means I need to stop talking about it. But essentially, my point is we all have a reason that we're here. And it's not just to do healing, it's not to do Reiki, it's not to do Kundalini yoga, it's not to do all of these plant medicines. Like, yes, that's part of your journey, maybe. I don't believe everybody needs to do any type of psychedelic or any type of psychoactive anything. However, if that's going to help you tap better into your body and bring you back into your body and stop living out here because of all of the terrible trauma you've gone through, then I believe that it is needed. But that's neither here nor there. These are things I talk about with my one on one clients. But my point is, find out who you are and why you're here. Like, why did you decide to be the race, the ethnicity that you are? Why did you decide to be born in America or Canada or Mexico or Europe or wherever it is that you are listening to this? You know, why? Like, why? And it's always for you. Because, like, when I did my digging, I discovered my why for me and why life happened for me versus why is life happening to me constantly. I didn't ask for this. That's a victim mentality. Mm-mm. We don't do that over here. Not with me. Okay. Everything happens for a reason. Every single thing. And even as like the stupidest shit you can think of, like losing your keys or losing your wallet, there is a reason that happens for you. Okay. And so when we can go deeper into why is our life happening for us? Why did I decide to be me? It opens up a whole different world, a whole new world for you to express yourself, be authentically you, be unapologetically yourself, and then really honing in on not just your skills, but the reason you came to help people. Because I believe as humans, we all came here to help one another in one way or another. Whether you decided to check out and be an NPC, they're not even listening to this, but you know what I mean? Like, you decided all of this long ago. We can't remember, but it's for here us to discover so that we can help one another because we're walking each other home, whether we believe it or not. Like the guy that you passed on the side of the road that you may or may not have flipped off, like there's a reason that he needed to do that to help you discover a part of you that maybe you don't like so much, that you don't know how to control your anger when you're driving, or whatever the case. Or maybe he needed that so he can learn that he's being a douche. You know what I mean? Like, there's always a reason why things happen, and it's never two, it's always four. Okay? Because we don't do victim mentalities here. It's always up and up, always, no matter what. Even if you're going down, sometimes we got to hit the rock bottom before we can climb our way up. Because to me, that just shows you how powerful you are. Like the to the depths of the end of, like, oh shit, like life can't get any worse. And then you climb your way out of that. Like, that's how powerful you are. And I know some of you listening to this are that powerful because you've been there before. Maybe you're in it right now and you're midway climbing your way out. But it's just, again, proving to yourself, more importantly, that you are that powerful and you have the capability to do it. So I encourage you, with all of this being said, to look into your lineage and really understand who you are, why you are. Now, of course, there are things that you might pick up from other cultures, like I did. I learned a lot from the Navajo nation and how they protect themselves on a spiritual and psychic level, because they don't teach that in Christianity. In old ancient Catholicism, you can find it. Me and my husband were actually talking about this, like exorcisms. There are actual priests that know how to do it, which I actually want to do a whole other podcast on this, because exorcisms are just like so cool to me. Like, I think they're amazing. And there are people that do them daily, and we don't even know that they're actively doing them, because exorcisms in the movies look so different than what reality is. But it also comes down to your religion that you were born into. So Jewish people, I believe, really believe in this. This is why, if you're Jewish, you have to be born into, or as I said, born. If you are born Jewish, you have to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. Like, that's the whole thing. And the reason for that is because what I learned from the Navajo is, when our soul passes on, we have to meet with that soul tie family to make it back to the other side. Now, whether you believe in this or not, that's fine. But how do you expect to get to heaven if you don't even believe in that religion or want to do anything with it? Right. So that's for another podcast. Like, it's like a whole thing, like, that I really want to get into, but we're not going to do it here today, because today is supposed to be just updates, but I'm over here telling you my life story. So thank you for listening so far. But with all of that being said, it just, like, it's just, yeah, you have to look into your lineage and, like, and just start there. Excuse me, because the little breadcrumbs will start coming, and you'll start picking them up and realizing that, wow, this is why I'm here. And sometimes it'll even connect back to things that when you were a child that maybe you loved and liked, and that got lost somewhere in the sauce. Because, right, as adults, as we're growing, we have other adults telling us not to do this, don't do that, be like this, blah, blah, blah. And then all these other traumas happen that force us to want to not be in this vessel anymore. But we need to come back to this vessel. And, again, if there's certain traumas, whether it's sexual trauma, a, any form of abuse, whether that's physical, drug, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, harassment, whatever, like, we can heal from all of these things. And we need to heal those things, because those are actual energy roadblocks for us, right? That are blocking us from fully experiencing this human life. And when we can't experience the whole spectrum of human life, we're never going to truly find why our purpose is here. So I'm going to leave you with that. I think that's a lot. And then, as far as updates go, I don't know if you can hear that buzzing. My dryer likes to buzz 3 times in a row, in case you didn't hear it the first 2 other times. But anyways, yeah. So as far as updates go, so Feminine Rising podcast, logo getting updated. Instagram will be more active, as long as I make sure that I'm posting on here and creating all of these beautiful podcast contents for you. I am Amber Moreno. If you've been following, it's already changed. I'm loving how it's going. Very dark, very gothic. I'm like obsessed with it. Like my 16-year-old self is in love with it, and I love her because that is when I truly started to become the person I needed to be. But then I allowed other boys and adults dictate and tell me how to live my life, and I listened and I let them. But it needed to happen because I needed to get lost to get found again. As fucked up as that sounds, but it's true. And those of you that know what I'm talking about are like, yep, that was me. Oh, there's a fourth buzz. Oh man. Anyways, so I'm getting distracted by the buzzing. I hope you can't hear it. This mic's pretty good. But anyways, other update is I have a lifestyle Instagram that I got going. I'm going to do my best to remain as active as possible on there because we all know I like to create Instagrams and then I fall off the wagon with those. But this one is where I'm going to be sharing, like I said, lifestyle. So you're going to see my cats, you're going to see my husband on there. You're going to see probably me working out on there from time to time. I don't know. Working out and lifting has always been a big passion of mine that I'm finally getting back into, like officially, which is great. You're going to see my vegan journey on there because believe it or not, I am a vegan and I have been for almost, oh, actually, it's been over 3 years now. Kind of crazy. I used to be vegan in high school. That's why I said my 16-year-old self is in love with where I'm headed. Because back then I started it for, what is it? Because I care about the animals. When I came into veganism 3 years ago, it was because I needed to save my health. I was dying. I was on the carnivore diet, doing keto and whatever else, and that does not work for me. If it's worked for you, that's great. Like, I still think you should probably eat a vegetable now and then. Like, it's not good to not eat those. But I also think it's funny that meat people say that I don't need a supplement, but you're taking a multivitamin, aren't you? Because you're not getting all your vitamins from eating flesh. Like, let's be real. Okay. We all have to supplement in this world. End of story. Like, let's stop. But, anyways, so the point of that Instagram, and it's at Rooted in Amber. On there, it'll be all lifestyle. So I will be journeying on in there. You're going to get to see more of the medicine side of me over on there as well. So, like, I use cannabis, not regularly, but I do use it and I don't talk about it over on my I am Amber Moreno Instagram because I want to keep that focused in on healing, learning yourself, and religious freedom. Okay, stepping out of the trauma that was created, well, stepping through it essentially, but you get my drift. So I'm really separating those. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and follow me. It's Rooted in Amber, no spaces. And if you already follow me over at I am Amber Moreno, cool. Like keep following me on there. I'm always posting on there. I always have something to say, whether it's religious related, psychic related, some form of metaphysical related. Because like I said, I love ghosts. I always have loved the spiritual realms as a child. I've lived in quite a few haunted houses. So, as far as this podcast is concerned, we have a lot of metaphysical things to talk about. But the beauty of the Feminine Rising podcast is that this is going to be not just geared towards, the metaphysical side and the spiritual side and the psychic side and all of that fun stuff, but it's also going to be every now and then we'll talk about lifestyle things and things that I feel need to be talked about because to be honest, there's a lot of things in spirituality that aren't being talked about, like politics. Everybody hates that word, but we need to be talking about it because whether you like it or not, our generations, so XYZ, we are leading the nation. Boomers are dying. Okay. Like they're not going to be here within the next 20, 30 years. They're all going to be gone. And so we really need to be paying attention and making sure that things are going the way that we see fit for it. Stepping out of this old conditioning, this patriarchal brainwashing that a lot of us still have. Okay, matriarchy is not the way either, just so you know. Archies are not it, okay? We're headed into a new direction. But I'll leave that there because, like I said, we'll get into these in the different podcasts and different times and different topics and different, all the different things. So I'm excited. This year is going to be looking good for the podcast as long as I stay in integrity and make sure that I show up for you. So, anyways, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. If you made it this far, please and thank you. Like, oh man, I don't know why I'm saying please and thank you, but thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful week as always. And if you do like this podcast, like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, you can thumbs down it too. It helps me to know what kind of content you guys like. And if you feel like it, go ahead and drop a comment, whether you're watching on YouTube, Spotify. Let's get the conversations going. I love talking to all of you, believe it or not. And I want to hear what you have to say, positive or what is it? Constructive criticism only, please. If there are any haters, I will block you. End of story. I was going to say Twitter. It's not Twitter. TikTok. I don't know. My brain is off now. This is what happens after a podcast. So, anyways, thanks again. I love you so much, and I will see you when I see you.